The Committee of Justice of Parliament to meet to discuss youth crime, intervention strategies and prevention efforts. KPSM calls for cooperation and safety. During opening jumper, MP Omar Otley, the public meeting of Parliament regarding the state of affairs of the St. Martin General Hospital, a proposed task force on monetary future and financial stability, Minister Gums and MP La Cruz. From the island, St. Martin, this is SXM Daily News for April 9th, 2026. The Committee of Justice of Parliament is to meet to discuss youth crime, intervention strategies and prevention efforts on April 8th, 2026. This meeting was requested by MP Egbert Doran. Also in the meeting were the Prime Minister and the Minister of Justice. The idea behind this is that you've seen the rising crime over the last couple of years, and I believe that some of these classic things, or things that we had in the past, played a political world on shaping some of us, even members of Parliament, against certain parties that talk about their military experience and different people within the community.
The idea or the thought process behind of this is that we've seen the rise in crime over the last couple of years, and I believe that some of these, classic things or things that we had in the past played a pivotal role in shaping some of us, even members of Parliament. I've heard certain colleagues talk about their military experience and different people within the community, and I believe that given the past 16 years, that missed opportunity for our young people could help in some way or another, whether it's, create a different path for them or even enhance the quality of life in terms of having that discipline training. And I think that sometimes we just need to do some simple things, low-hanging fruit, in order to fix some of our issues that we are facing. Hence the reason I request for the Prime Minister and the Minister of Justice to be here, and I thank them for their presence, and I look forward to a positive discourse so that we can come to some solutions moving forward. Thank you.
First, I'm concerned about the state of our youth in our St. Martin, and secondly, I'm also impressed for the increasing levels of crime within our society. We must do more. We all realize that whenever there is one crime act, that is one too much. And that means that as long we are challenged by only one crime in the community, we must conclude that we have to do more. It has to be collectively and with urgency, of course, to guide, to support, and to empower our young people especially. As Prime Minister, I consider it my responsibility to support the efforts of my colleague ministers, especially the Minister of Justice, Mrs. Stecklin, as well as the constructive initiatives brought forward by the members of Parliament that aim to instill discipline, structure, and opportunity for the young people and, of course, for the next generation. In this regard, I wish to express my sincere appreciation for the proposals submitted by members of Parliament, and in particular by the Member of Parliament, Mr. Doran, concerning the introduction of military-oriented training for the youth of St. Martin. As reflected in my recent correspondence to Parliament dated March the 23rd, 2026, I recognize and appreciate the intent behind this initiative, particularly its focus on discipline, skill developments, and creating meaningful pathways for our young people. These are exactly the types of interventions we need at this particular time. I also wish to emphasize that this is not a new or isolated idea. the expansion of structured training opportunities, including military-oriented programs, has already been under active consideration. As early as, for example, March 2025, such possibilities were explored with the understanding that these programs can contribute to significantly the discipline and personal development and national resilience. This proposal is therefore both timely and aligned with ongoing efforts, and it is encouraging to see shared commitment across this Parliament on advancing solutions for our youth. Additionally, as noted in public discussions early this year, including an article dated March the 26th, 2025, the importance of ensuring equal access within the Kingdom was clearly reconfirmed. It was stated, we must ensure that young people in St. Martin have equal access to the same defense education opportunities as their peers in other parts of the Kingdom. Local training would not only empower our youth, but also strengthen local capacity. As, for example, in Curaçao and Aruba, there are the SVT educations, that stands for Sociaal Vormingstraject, the SVT, that they have specifically for a few years already in Aruba and Curaçao. This is a special military-based education program given by the coordination with the Defense of the Netherlands. This SVT program is a program that focuses on discipline, structure, and responsibility forming for the youth. This SVT, being the Sociaal Vormingstraject, gives the opportunity for a step over to a possible military career in the Kingdom. Next to this SVT, there is also the VEVA-opleiding, or the VEVA education, that stands for Veiligheid en Vakmanschap Education. This is a MBO-opleiding, what they call in Dutch a middelbare beroepsopleiding, and that actually prepares trainees for a job by the Army of the Kingdom. Especially this SVT and this VEVA are two programs that seriously has to be considered for country St. Martin. And we have to specifically look into these two streams to see if they will have any significance for country St. Martin.
Natalie Tackling, Minister of Justice. The programs that my ministry has compiled. Before I begin, I want to establish two foundational points that guide everything that the ministry does in this area. First, these challenges are not new. Youth vulnerability, youth delinquency, and their spillover effects on communities have been present for a long time. What changes over time is not the existence of the problem, but the form that it takes, the intensity of certain friends, and crucially, the capacity of our institutions and our communities to respond. The Minister of Justice spoke in a meeting of Parliament on April 8, 2026.
The agenda before us today covers three interconnected matters: the current crime situation affecting youth and communities, discussion on youth intervention options, including the question of a military-style training, and an update on the Ministry of Justice efforts to strengthen prevention and community support. I will address each of these in turn, drawing on the data and the programs that my ministry has compiled. Before I begin, I want to establish two foundational points that guide everything that the ministry does in this area. The first, these challenges are not new. Youth vulnerability, youth delinquency, and their spillover effects on communities have been present for a long time. What changes over time is not the existence of the problem, but the form that it takes, the intensity of certain trends, and, crucially, the capacity of our institutions and our communities to respond. Acknowledging that history matters. because it tells us that quick fixes have not worked and they will not work now. Second, we will not solve this through justice alone. Real prevention and real resilience require a broader partnership. Parents and guardians, schools and youth services, community organizations, the private sector, and the relevant ministries, each within their own responsibilities and legal mandates. This is not a new observation either. The governing program 2025-2028 explicitly frames safety and justice as shared responsibility that requires cooperation across ministries and partners. The Ministry of Justice is here today to account for its part in that shared responsibility and to be direct about what the other parts require. This brings us then into the first agenda item, the crime situation affecting youth and communities. The 2025 crime statistics offer cause for cautious optimism, but also for serious concern. On the positive side, St. Martin recorded a 19% decrease in homicides, a 15% decrease in armed robberies, an 11% decrease in traffic accidents, a 5.5% reduction in 911 calls, and a 37% decrease in noise complaints. At the same time, enforcement activity increased. Traffic tickets issued was up by 10%, the number of arrests also up by 5%, drugs seized up by 8%, more than 650 kilos, and firearms seized up by 11%. These numbers show that both the crime environment and the enforcement capacity are shifting. However, the trend that demands our urgent attention and sustained attention is gun-related crime. Despite the overall improvement in headline figures, the pattern of firearms in the hands of young people is a serious and growing concern that requires a holistic, multidisciplinary response. In 2025, 50 minors were arrested. Of these, 44 were male and 6 were female. The arrest categories include armed theft, receiving stolen goods or fencing, weapons violations, and a person in possession of a firearm. The diversity of offense categories confirms that the youth justice challenge is not one-dimensional. In 2026, these are year-to-date figures. In the first months of 2026, of 171 suspects arrested in total, 11 of these were minors, representing 6.5% of all arrests. 10 of the 11 were male, and most of them were 17 years of age. The majority held the Dutch nationality. The offenses among this group include vandalism, threats, theft, receiving stolen goods, and critically, discharging a firearm. That last category alone should focus our attention today. The data tells us that most young people on St. Martin are not offenders, but a small cohort, often older male teenagers with access to weapons, is driving disproportionate harm. Behind each of those young people is a story of risk factors: disrupted schooling, unstable family environments, limited pathways to work, and exposure to a violence culture that normalizes weapons as a source of status. The profile that emerges from that data is specific and should focus our response. We're not dealing with a broad, generalized wave of youth crime. We are dealing with a concentrated pattern: older male teenagers, Dutch nationals, disproportionately involved in weapons offenses. That profile points toward targeted, early intervention in schools, in communities, and in the networks through which firearms reach young hands, rather than a general enforcement surge. And that is precisely why enforcement alone cannot be the answer. That is where we begin, but not where we stop.
MP Omar Otley, speaking at the House of Parliament on April 8, 2026. Despite what I noticed meeting as a hot meeting, I see that it's a tribute, and we all know what's in the movies. But when this meeting was called, I want to sit in that seat. So this meeting is on my behalf. Isn't there the dream? A lack of transparency? See, what happens is, you can change or reshape your future, but you cannot change the past. What I mean by that is, let's dive back to 2016, right here with the signing of the contract.
See, what happens is You can change or reshape your future, but you can't change the past. And what I mean by that is, let's dive back to 2016, right here with the signing of the contract. This was before I even dived in politics. You know, we had a colleague, and when it's good, but when it's bad, we have to speak on when it's bad. And the colleague spoke on the essence and the fabric of the Democratic Party. But responsibility is one thing. And one thing that I have learned, and you can go back to any one of my videos, I said it. I was not the orchestrator of this mess, but it's what I have to bear with. That is what I don't hear from this government much. What you hear is, but you, but you, but you. I was not the orchestrator, but it's what I had to bear with, because I was there then, through you, Madam Chair. But here we have a signing, everyone smiling and looking good, and all familiar faces signing in 2016, and I want the public to understand this. Because some of you, if you was 10 then, you're 20 now. That's what we're dealing with this government. And then I move later down in 2016, September to be exact, it says, VAMID filed injunction against Minister of VSA. See where we're going now, Sir Martin, you may ask, what is VAMID? Who is a VAMID? And we're talking about INZO and FINZO. And before the hospital even got the first brick laid, the first pile driven, anything down in the fence, we had to pay millions to settle. Millions to settle. Already started with a bad taste. Then we have 2017. Theo Hilliger questions the €1 million paid to VAMID. And I said, politics is a strange thing, a very strange thing, because it makes strange bedfellows. And this is why government tends to not last, because we just jump and do things. Then later on, we wonder why. Madam Chair, despite not believing in what is going on, despite knowing that there's an issue with the hospital, in 2018, then we had the famous UD. So still join. And I have here, February 2018, Emil Lee plans to hold groundbreaking for new general hospital despite lack of finances. Despite lack of finances. So we knew that there was an issue. We knew that there was a problem. Madam Chair, I have here, and I'd like to state that, for the record, I did say 2016. 2018, groundbreaking was supposed to be held. I have here a picture. April 20th, 2021. 1 day before I took office. 1 day. From 2016, this have 0 on it. 0, zilch. Not a brick, not a concrete, not a fabric laid. Matter of fact, what you're seeing here is the crane not even put together. This is the day before I got into office. Madam Chair, a lot of people speak of foundation, just a foundation, just a foundation. August 2022, St. Martin General Hospital records the largest pour in St. Martin history, totaling 120 trucks. This was not your typical foundation. The steel used for this foundation cannot even be bought in America. So I say that to say this, with this single largest pour, this was only a fraction of the foundation, to show you the foundation we dealt with. The foundations was to be raised 7 meters higher than the regular foundation of the current medical center to avoid flooding. By the time the end of my tenure, we had a foundation, we had 7 water tanks, we had the tech room, and we had the generator station. Today, we are going up, and I'm happy to see that we are going up. I'm very happy. But again, responsibility cannot be overlooked on the mess that we have. We had something called a Fourth Amendment contract. Matter of fact, let me rewind. When I got into government in April 2021, I had to deal with FinSO. FinSO didn't even have a bank account because they changed their name. That's what we were dealing with. So the drama from INSO changed their name, promised financial security, and didn't even have a bank account. We then had the Fourth Amendment contract. What is the Fourth Amendment? Is where more money was requested, where all parties believed and said, you know what? From an agreement made in 2015 and 16 to start now, you cannot expect nowhere, no how that the amount will be the same. The war in Ukraine has driven the prices at the time significantly higher. But as a minister, I did not play with them. I held meetings every 3 months with deadlines that had to be met. I don't care what you do, how you do it, how much money you want. These deadlines had to be met. And what was beautiful is that the World Bank had to approve this Fourth Amendment to ensure that it was accurate and no fraud was taking place. And it was done, and it was approved. Now today, there's a request for 20 million more. Minister, I do not expect you to sit and discuss financials. You have to separate yourself. But what I do expect you to sit and say, I don't care what you are saying. You have an agreement, and I want this done by this time.
MP Darrell York. For those who don't know, I'm a civil engineer by trade. Back at the university, during lectures, the professor would see that the majority of you in this room are going to become different types of engineers in 4 to 6 years. But please know that you won't be the most important person in the project, and most importantly, an important part of the project. The professor said at the time that the two most important people of a major project, not the small ones, but the big ones, like what we're discussing today, are the contractor, managers, end-of-risk managers, right? It was said that contract language mingles and unidentified risks become detrimental to the project. Speaking in the Parliament on April 8th, 2026.
For those that don't know, I'm a civil engineer by trade, and back at the university, during lectures, the professor would say, the majority of you in this room are going to become different type of engineers in 4 to 6 years. But please know that you won't be the most important person of the project, or most important persons of the project. The professor said at the time that the two most important people of a project, of major projects, not the small ones, but the big ones like what we're discussing today, are the contract managers and the risk managers. Why? It was said that contract language lingers and unidentified risks become detrimental to the project. And seeing that there are different phases in construction, from the initiative phase to the contract phase, the design phase, contract phase, and then the execution phase, there's an important report that is supposed to be submitted around the time of the completion of the contract phase, and that report is named a risk assessment report. Why is that important? Now, Madam Chair, in the minister's explanation, the minister said the most recent settlement was because of design implications and construction complexity, things that they found when it comes to construction complexity. But Madam Chair, these are all things that are supposed to be identified in the risk assessment report that was supposed to be done in 2018. So my question is to the minister, who was the risk manager, or was there a risk manager prior to the contract being signed? And if there was one, I would like to see the report that was submitted by this risk manager. Because all the things I'm hearing now, Madam Chair, through you, had to be identified, a majority of them had to be identified before. Because when I referenced the construction in Colombia of the hospital wing of 11 floors, 4 the minister highlighted 4 reasons for delay, and there were 4 crises. That hospital, that construction also, with the exception of one being Irma, had to deal with 3 of those 4 crises. And that was done still in 4 years' time. Now we're speaking 10 years later, counting windows still. Why do I say the contract manager is one of the most, if not the most important person of the project? It's because right now, Madam Chair, we're still speaking about settlements and not penalties, which means the contract manager of the company, construction company, got one up on St. Martin's contract manager if we had a contract manager. Because at the same time, Madam Chair, I have yet to hear of a penalty that costs the contractors money and only settlements that cost the country money. Madam Chair, in order to fix a problem or to avoid a problem, you have to be aware that there is a problem. And when I listen to the minister speak through you, and I watched the presentation given, Madam Chair, the way the minister brought the explanation of how we are where we are today pertaining to the delay, I would get the impression that is no big biggie what's going on, and that it's just a mere bump in the road, but we good. That is the impression, Minister, that you gave, at least I speak for myself, you gave me here today. And how can we fix this problem or avoid the problem, mitigate the problem moving forward if we're not even acknowledging that there's a problem? And Minister, by acknowledging there's a problem, by no way, shape, form, or fashion are you being blamed, or I'm pointing the blame solely at you because this project is 10 years old. But at the same time, not acknowledging the problem, silent is consent. So, if I hear on one end, yes, the price went up years ago during the prior term because of inflation, etc., I can understand that a little bit. But if I'm hearing now that the new design, what I know, the new design is smaller than the original design, but yet discovery that we need more steel is one of the reasons why the settlement, the price has gone up, which makes me question the bill of quantities in the beginning, makes me question the reassessment along the line, makes me question the risk report that was made in the beginning, if we're still discovering how much steel we need. And how do we need more steel for a smaller building? Which leads me to the following question. I would like the minister, if he cannot show the design, can the minister, if he can show the design of the first initial design compared to the design what it has become today, after all of the renegotiations. And I would like to know how many floors of a building did the initial design have? So after the first contract that was signed, and the amount of square footage as well of the initial design compared to the design and the product what the people of St. Martin are getting today. Because if we're saying we're still discovering we need to buy more steel, and the square footage is significantly smaller, makes me question what did that contract manager of St. Martin or that risk manager of St. Martin agree to years ago. Because again, contract language lingers and unidentified risks turn detrimental. Moving on, Minister, through you, Madam Chair, the Minister stated that the final floor will be complete at the 26th of April 2026. I would like, maybe it's a rhetorical question, but I would like to ask the Minister if he's aware that that's in 3 weeks' time. And what exactly constitutes completion? I would also like to know, Madam Chair, through you, what is the total sum, if the Minister can give a breakdown, of the settlement costs of what it has cost the country over the years, of all the added sums of money that has been needed for this project? And lastly, about the construction of the building, the Minister said that himself, and by extension of him, the board of the hospital are open to have a closed-door meeting on the topic. Now, Madam Chair, we just had we're having a meeting about the construction of the hospital, the general hospital. We haven't even spoken on, and the minister hasn't even shared with us, the crux of the whole meeting is how much it's going to cost us. What is the rumored sum? If it's a rumor, if it's the truth, what is the sum of the amount of money that is being asked of today? I understand from the minister that that's being negotiated now by the by the board of the hospital and that they're willing to discuss it in a closed-door meeting. I'm not a proponent of closed-door meetings, seeing that this has to do with taxpayers' money. But at the end of the day, even if the closed-door meeting were to happen, I would like to ask the Minister for you, Madam Chair, don't waste our time with a closed-door meeting if it's going to be held, because, Madam Chair, if that closed-door meeting is reminiscent to the closed-door meeting we had with the fire department the other day, not with the fire department, or with the Prime Minister and members of the representatives of the fire department, that was a total waste of time, because it was still, everything was still being said to be confidential and can't be spoken, and people was watching their words during a closed-door meeting.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurances.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
The police force of St. Martin, KPSM, is informing the general public of the upcoming Jump Up opening, scheduled for Friday, April 10th, 2026. The event will begin at 8:00 p.m. from the South Reward area and proceed toward the festival village as part of the official opening of the carnival season. KPSM is once again calling on the community for full cooperation and responsible behavior during this and all upcoming carnival activities. Officers will maintain a strong presence throughout the parade to ensure public safety and order. The police will take action against all individuals who disturb public order. This includes, but is not limited to, persons wearing masks, sale of alcohol along the roadside, especially to minors, and the distribution of beverages in glass bottles. A list of punishable offences and corresponding fines has already been shared with the public, and strict enforcement will be carried out during the Jump Up and subsequent events. In addition, KPSM urges parents and guardians to have open and serious discussions with their minor children regarding appropriate behaviour during the Jump Up and the remainder of the carnival period. Parental guidance is essential to ensuring that young persons understand the importance of respecting public order, safety regulations, and law enforcement instructions. Attention will also be given to the movement of scooters and motorcycles during the event. Riders are strongly warned not to drive through or interfere with the jump-up parade. Such actions pose a serious risk to public safety. KPSM will take immediate action against any rider whose behavior endangers participants or disrupts the flow of the event. KPSM remains committed to ensuring a safe and enjoyable carnival experience for all residents and visitors. The cooperation of the community is essential in achieving this goal. The police force of St. Martin, KPSM, continues to intensify its efforts in combating drug-related crimes across the island. Detectives from various specialized units have recently made several arrests in connection with ongoing investigations into the import and export of illegal narcotics. On April 7, 2026, based on an arrest warrant, suspect RJL, age 36, was arrested in connection with the importation of soft drugs into St. Martin. The suspect was subsequently questioned and remains in police custody pending further investigation. This investigation is being carried out by the Alpha team. In a separate investigation, on April 8, 2026, suspect QCA, age 22, was arrested based on an arrest warrant for his involvement in the export of hard drugs. Following the arrest, a house search was conducted in the Middle Region area. The suspect has been questioned and remains in custody pending further investigation. This case is being handled by the Pelican team, which specializes in cross-border investigations related to drugs and firearms. Drug trafficking and abuse continue to pose a serious threat, not only to St. Martin, but to communities across the Caribbean and the international community at large. The illegal drug trade fuels a cycle of crime that often includes violence, firearm-related offenses, money laundering, and the expansion of organized criminal networks. These activities place significant strain on law enforcement and judicial systems. From a regional and international perspective, drug trafficking undermines cooperation between countries and threatens economic stability. A proposed task force on monetary future and financial stability. The government is not waiting for events to overtake us. We are taking decisive action. The Council of Ministers is set to establish a task force on monetary future and financial stability, which will be mandated to one aligned with stakeholders like the International Monetary Fund. The Minister of Finance, speaking in the House of Parliament on March 31, 2026.
A proposed task force on monetary future and financial stability. Madam Chair, the government of St. Martin is not waiting for events to overtake us. We are taking decisive action. The Council of Ministers is set to establish a task force on monetary future and financial stability, which will be mandated to, one, align with stakeholders like the International Monetary Funds, CBCS, etc. Two, evaluate the current monetary union. Three, assess the implications of a potential dissolution. Four, examine currency options. Five, develop scenarios for establishing a national central bank. Six, analyze impacts on the banking sector and payment systems. Seven, provide concrete recommendations to the government on a possible path forward. This task force will engage local experts, regional partners, and international institutions. Its work will be thorough, independent, and aligned with global best practices. Madam Chair, allow me to state here categorically that we are not reacting to events, we are preparing for them. We are not passive, we are proactive, we are not waiting, we are moving. Guiding principles of St. Martin's position. Our approach is guided by 5 core principles. Stability first. For us, Madam Chair, financial stability is paramount. Any dismantling has to be properly prepared and must never, ever jeopardize the financial stability of our nation in any way. 2, transparency and accountability. We will demand full transparency from the CBCS and from our partners in the monetary union. Equal partnership. Madam Chair, I am not given to any kind of political posturing or making bravado statements, but I can assure Parliament, the honorable members of Parliament through you, that we will not accept any subordinate role in this unfolding saga. Protection of the interests of St. Martin, its people and economy. Continuous supervision of financial institutions will remain a priority, alongside advancing the necessary legislation before Parliament to meet the requirements of the Financial Action Task Force and to facilitate innovation within St. Martin's financial sector. We will also move forward with the implementation of a deposit guarantee scheme to safeguard the savings of our people of up to 50,000 guilders, as well as the introduction of the basic payment account. I can assure Parliament of our full commitment to these measures. Preparedness. If we put aside the legal language, Madam Chair, the logic is simple. You can't just walk away from a joint central bank, and certainly not after 15 years. If the union ends, we must negotiate the following: who takes which assets, who assumes which risks and obligations, and how to protect people's deposits, contracts, and confidence. The statute and its implementing laws do not lock Curaçao and St. Martin into this monetary union forever. So, Madam Chair, we know from the experience of the Central Bank of the Netherlands Antilles that we entered into the union with our eyes wide open until something do us part. And that something is already knocking at our door, Madam Chair. We will answer the door knowingly or knowing fully well that any dismantling has to be deliberated, legally structured, and financially fair. We will be ready for any and all outcomes. Madam Chair, the challenges before us are significant, but they are not insurmountable. Next to the dismantling of the Netherlands Antilles and the Central Bank of the Netherlands Antilles, St. Martin has faced adversities like hurricanes, economic shocks, institutional crisis before, and each time we have emerged stronger. This moment requires unity, resolve, and clarity of purpose. It requires us to stand firm in defense of our national interest. It requires us to prepare not out of fear, but out of responsibility. We will not be rushed. We will not be sidelined. We will not be bullied. We will not compromise the interests of our people. We will act decisively. We will protect our financial stability. We will uphold good governance, and we will ensure that St. Martin's future is secure, stable, and prosperous.
Fear the fact that the minister states that she will not be bullied. I agree 100%. For St. Martin and anyone who starts with St. Martin, we will not accept anyone bullying us in any way whatsoever. MP Francisco La Cruz, speaking in the House of Parliament.
The fact that the minister states that she will not be bullied, I stand 100% for St. Martin. And anyone that stands with St. Martin, we will not accept anyone bullying us in any way whatsoever. But before we go there, Madam Chair Lady, I have a couple questions. And the first question I'm going to ask, because this started, the whole commotion started with the appointment of a director and whose turn it was. Is it St. Martin's turn? Is it Curaçao's turn? Madam Chair Lady, through this whole confusion that we've had here on St. Martin, at no point we heard one word from Curaçao, the Minister of Finance of Curaçao, or anyone in government or Parliament concerning what was happening here. Because, Madam Chair Lady, if I believe I have the right to put a chair, and I am going through hell because of who I put or how I put it, and you say nothing in this whole process, then explain me how can it be possible that I don't have the chair? Because the first thing I would have called out and say, hey, but you in confusion there and heat for a chair that you don't even have the right. This is our turn to bring the chair, but nothing was said. Madam Chair Lady, what I would like to see is the minutes of those meetings. Because I want to know if the minister, ex-minister in Curaçao is telling lies, or if it's my minister telling me fibs. I want to know what's going on. Because we reach a point now where something that seemed stable is now one bubble. And the only thing I am hearing is about cost, and more cost for St. Martin. Again, I say, Madam Chair Lady, and I don't want anyone to twist my words, I stand with St. Martin. The Prime Minister made a comment once that I laughed when he said, Mullet Bay is in St. Martin and it stays in St. Martin. So whatever happens, make sure Mullet Bay stays for St. Martin. Madam Chair Lady, looking at numbers, I want to understand this. We own or we receive a percentage from the income from Central Bank, okay? If I'm not mistaken, it's 22.2%. I stand to be corrected. How much of the income generated in Central Bank, what is that percentage that comes from St. Martin? I'm curious to know that. And I want to know if the minister can give us a breakdown, looking at the numbers from the last 3 years, if we had our own central bank, also paying attention to the cost of running a central bank, what would it have meant for us? Would we be in red or not?
Now for the weather forecast, today through Friday midday. Fair to partly cloudy, slightly hazy, and occasionally breezy. Brisk showers are likely. Surface winds, today through Friday midday, east to southeasterly, with a gentle to moderate breeze, at 8 to 16 Mummier Mulmouth, state of the sea. Slight to moderate waves, swells, 2 to 5 feet, outlook through Saturday midday. Fair to partly cloudy and occasionally hazy, with isolated showers, and now your 3-day forecast.
SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
The St. Martin Carnival Development Foundation, SCDF, on Saturday, April 4th, honored 5 Carnival stakeholders for their dedication and service to Carnival over the years. Recognized during the special ceremony were DJ Mixmaster Paulie, Earl Churchy York of Sound 2000, promoter Francois Coochie Hunt, Carnival stalwart Louis Porkchop Richardson, and longtime booth holder Mary Bryson of the Meals on Wheels Foundation, who was recognized posthumously following her recent passing. The evening was hosted by former SCDF President Erno Labega and current SCDF Treasurer Michael Granger, who paid tribute to the honorees by sharing stories and reflecting on their history and contributions to Carnival. Rather than following a script, the ceremony took on a storytelling format, creating a warm and personal atmosphere. Granger explained that the SCDF intentionally hosts its honoree ceremonies in this intimate manner, bringing together honorees, their families, and SCDF volunteers as a heartfelt way of saying thank you to individuals who have given so much to Carnival over the years. For the first time in more than 5 weeks, the U.S. did not launch widespread attacks on Iran, and Iran did not strike American targets. Even as the ceasefire between the two nations largely holds, it's being tested by what appears to be Iran's ongoing chokehold of the Strait of Hormuz, as well as Israel's war in Lebanon. Nick Schifrin reports for PBS News.
Today, in 2 capitals, 2 declarations of victory. In Tehran, immediately after the ceasefire, government supporters filled the streets, desecrating what the regime has for decades called the Big and Little Satan. Meanwhile, at the White House,
this is a victory for the United States of America.
And the Pentagon,
Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory.
The U.S. declared its own goals met. But this is what the vice president admitted was a fragile truce. In the hours after the ceasefire, Iran attacked Israel, intercepted by air defense. And Iran reported an attack on an oil refinery in the Strait of Hormuz. And it's that energy choke point through which 20% of the world's oil and natural gas usually flows that became one of the ceasefire deal's linchpins. Today, Iranian state media announced it was closed because of ongoing Israeli attacks on Lebanon.
This is a case of what they're saying publicly is different privately. We have seen an uptick of traffic in the Strait today.
But at the White House today, spokesperson Caroline Leavitt insisted the Strait was open.
I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened immediately, quickly, and safely. That is his expectation. It has been relayed to him privately that is what's taking place, and these reports publicly are false.
Transiting in Strait of Hormuz is closed.
In the Persian Gulf, Iran's Navy tells a different story, broadcasting this audio message today.
If any vessels try to transit without permission, will be destroyed. Out.
And maritime intelligence organizations tell PBS NewsHour that Iran only allowed 5 ships through the strait today, the same number as the day before the ceasefire. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned, quote, "The ceasefire terms are clear and explicit. The U.S. must choose ceasefire or continued war via Israel. It cannot have both. The world sees the massacres in Lebanon. The ball is in the U.S. court." Israel today hit Lebanon with what it called the largest coordinated wave of strikes since the war in Iran began. Pounding Beirut, attacking more than 100 targets within 10 minutes. And targeting southern Lebanon, where Israeli troops recently invaded and pushed out most of the population. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today this part of the war will not end.
I insisted that the temporary ceasefire with Iran would not include Hezbollah, and we continue to strike it hard.
I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't.
But Vice President Vance today, at the end of a trip to Budapest, Hungary, said Israel never promised a ceasefire in Lebanon, but might be willing now.
The Israelis, as I understand it, again, I'm supposed to get a fuller report when I get on the plane, have actually offered to be, frankly, to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon because they want to make sure that our negotiation is successful.
Vance will lead negotiations with Iran beginning this weekend in Pakistan, alongside Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, dispatched by President Trump.
He's told us to come to the negotiating table, but if the Iranians don't do the exact same thing, they're going to find out that the President of the United States is not one to mess around. He's impatient. He's impatient to make progress. He has told us to negotiate in good faith.
Last night, Iran's Supreme National Security Council released its negotiating demands, including, quote, "the establishment of a secure transit protocol in the Strait of Hormuz in such a manner as to guarantee Iran's dominion, withdrawal of U.S. forces from the Middle East, and U.S.-Israeli reparations." The U.S. has long rejected those demands. Iran is also demanding the lifting of all sanctions, which President Trump acknowledged today was on the table. But in turn, Iran has rejected the U.S.'s long-standing demands, including no domestic uranium enrichment, end of support for proxies, and limits on missile inventory and range. And today, the U.S. added a new demand and threat. Iran must hand over its nearly 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium, believed buried under the rubble of last summer's U.S. strikes, or the U.S. will launch a raid to seize it.
They will either give it to us, which the president has laid out. They'll give it to us voluntarily. We'll get it. We'll take it out.
But back in Tehran, there is cautious relief, and for some, a clear enemy.
Everyone likes peace and calm, but unfortunately someone is talking to us who is not trustworthy at all.
Every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night.
Even for President Trump, it has been a volatile 48 hours. He whipsawed between threatening to destroy Iran's civilization unless there was a deal to an 11th-hour deal, declaring the ceasefire and claiming almost all of our various points of past contention have been agreed to. For European allies confronting an unpredictable president, for the U.S.'s Gulf allies facing persistent new Iranian threats, and for energy infrastructure that will take months or years to rebuild, the war will have consequences long beyond any ceasefire. Tonight, a U.S. official acknowledges to me that the Strait of Hormuz is basically a pressure valve that Iran can turn on and off. But the official argues the war has shifted Iran's demands, including its willingness to accept this temporary ceasefire. The challenge now is this weekend's negotiations, which Iran enters with a leverage over the strait, Jeff, that it did not have before the war.
This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.